The tale of Grashnak One-Eye, first and only Goblin King, begins not with glory, but with blood and dust. For centuries, the goblins of the borderlands were fractured, divided into feuding clans that squabbled over scraps. They were nomadic raiders, dangerous to lone travelers and exposed hamlets, but never a true threat to kingdoms. They could not unite, they could not build, or so men thought. Grashnak belonged to the Shieldbiter clan, a ragged band infamous for gnawing the wooden shields of their foes to terrorize them before battle. What the Shieldbiters lacked in numbers, they made up for in ferocity, and under Grashnak's iron hand they became something greater. He was a rare goblin, tall, scarred, his left eye ruined in youth by the blade of a rival chief. Where others squabbled for trinkets, Grashnak dreamed of more. He understood not just how to win battles, but how to win wars. He crushed smaller clans, forcing the survivors into his ranks. When the Shieldbiters devoured the Red Fangs, the Bone Chews, and the Mud Tusks, goblins began to whisper his name with awe rather than fear. It was said Grashnak could swing a cleaver heavy enough to fell a horse, and that he would fight in the front ranks, laughing as arrows clattered from his rusted mail. Goblins followed him not only because he was brutal, but because he was cunning. His ambushes were masterful, his raids swift and merciless. Years of conquest swelled his host until it became something unseen in goblin history. A true horde. With thousands of blades at his back, Grashnak no longer wanted to roam. He wanted stone walls, a seat, a kingdom. He chose Blackfang Fortress, a crumbling keep tucked deep in the hills, long abandoned by men and garrisoned only by a few weary soldiers. The attack was sudden and merciless. Goblins swarmed the battlements like ants, overwhelming the defenders in hours. In the ruined halls, among rusted armor and moth-eaten banners, Grashnak found what would crown his ambition. A golden crown, relic of a noble line long since extinguished. Gazing at the faded portraits of kings upon the walls, Grashnak recognized a symbol of dominion. He placed the crown upon his brow, and before the roar of his horde declared himself king. Thus, under torchlight and spilled blood, the first goblin kingdom was born. Though crude by human standards, Grashnak fashioned a court from his most loyal followers. His shaman, Morglash, wielded wild sorcery born of blood and bone, now styled as his court wizard. His new war chief, Brak Thrice-Blooded, a brute broader and taller than any goblin living, became the right hand of his army. From Blackfang Fortress, they sent forth raiding bands that struck villages and waylaid caravans, retreating each time to the safety of stone walls. In the capital, the king's council grew uneasy. For the first time, goblins held not just land, but sovereignty. The king raged at his council. To besiege Blackfang would take months, perhaps longer, and his pride suffered each day that the Goblin King sat unchallenged. It was then the spymaster rose and offered a plan, spoken with quiet venom. When I was a boy, my king, I was an apprentice to the pest eradicator. Do you know the best way to rid yourself of ants or wasps? It is not with the sword or flame. It is to let the hive turn on its ruler for you. The next day, a royal embassy rode to Blackfang. Before its walls, they offered peace. Tribute would be sent, engineers dispatched to teach the goblins farming, masonry, and harvest. To sweeten the deal, the Goblin King's lieutenants were gifted enchanted relics. To Morglash, a talisman to focus his powers. In truth, it opened his mind to visions of empire, whispered by the king's own sorcerers. To Brak, a runed bearded axe that glowed red in darkness, feeding his bloodlust and ambition. Grashnak, convinced of his triumph, toasted the parley as a victory. He believed himself a true king at last. His followers drank, their bellies full, their voices raised in chants of his name. But soon Morglash and Brak turned against him. Visions of empire gnawed at the shaman. Bloodlust consumed the war chief. They grew restless with Grashnak's desire to build and parley, rather than burn and conquer. One night, assassins crept into the king's chamber. Whether sent by Brak, Morglash, or both, none can say. Grashnak the Goblin King was found butchered. In his bed, the golden crown lying in a pool of his blood. The murder plunged Blackfang into chaos. Brak and Morglash each claimed the crown, and the fortress became a charnel house as goblins turned on one another. Days of ceaseless fighting drained their strength until the banners of the true king rose upon the horizon. The royal army struck like a hammer. What little resistance the goblins offered crumbled. Those who did not flee were cut down. By dusk, the fortress was taken. Declaring it forever tainted by goblin blood, the king ordered Blackfang razed. Its charred stones remain to this day, a scar upon the hills. Thus ended the reign of Grashnak One-Eye, first and only Goblin King. His kingdom lasted scarcely longer than a season, yet his tale endures, for in that fleeting moment, goblins wore a crown, and men saw what unity among them might mean. His fall, engineered by cunning and betrayal, is recounted as much a jest as a warning that even vermin may dream of kingship, but crowns are heavy things, and few can bear their weight.